I'm not even sure why I'm sharing this. Maybe because there's no one left who'll listen without turning away. Maybe because the guilt's grown too loud to ignore. Or maybe it's because I need someone out there to understand how a woman like me, who had everything, managed to destroy it all in one reckless, unforgettable night. That night at the Crystal Globe, it's burned into me. Every sound, every flicker of light, every heartbeat. I told Aaron I was meeting Linda, just a girl's night, I said, smiling like I wasn't already halfway into a lie. But the truth, the raw, shameful truth, was that I wasn't meeting Linda. I was meeting Donald. And if I could take back that one choice that one night, I would. But life doesn't hand out rewinds. It only leaves you with memories that echo, and a version of yourself you barely recognize. So before you judge me, stay with me till the end. Because this isn't just a story about cheating, it's about loneliness, temptation, and how one night can destroy the life you thought was unshakable. And if you're new here, subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories. Every week we dive into the confessions people hide behind smiles, the ones that reveal just how fragile love and loyalty can be. Donald, my ex from college. The man who broke me once so completely I thought I'd never love again. And yet when he came back into town, it was like my body remembered every spark, every thrill, every dangerous heartbeat. I wish I could say I fought it, but I didn't. I let myself drift straight into the storm. He made me feel alive again, seen again, things Aaron hadn't made me feel in years. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. Our marriage had become a blur of bills, schedules, half-spoken arguments, a loop of silence and small resentments. Meanwhile, Donald played the devil perfectly, whispering promises I was foolish enough to believe. By the time I reached the club that night, I was already dizzy, from both the alcohol and the attention. The bass pounded through the floor. His hand slid around my waist. My heart raced like I was 20 again. When his lips touched mine, I didn't resist. I leaned in. And that's when the worst part happened. My so-called friends started cheering. Paul clapped. Linda laughed. Others egged me on like it was a game, a performance, not the unraveling of a marriage. No one stopped me. No one said a word. They just watched and I let them. I thought it was harmless, just fun, reckless freedom for one night, until I looked up and saw him. Aaron. The look in his eyes, I can still see it. He wasn't angry, not the way I expected. He wasn't shouting or crying. He was still, cold, like something inside him had snapped in silence. My blood turned to ice. But instead of breaking down, instead of remorse, something twisted and ugly came out of me. I smiled. God, I smiled. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe denial. Maybe that self-destructive part of me that always thought I could talk my way out of anything. Oh, Aaron, wait, I started, but he cut me off with a calmness that froze me. No, you're not sorry, he said. So save it. I'll give you time to be sorry. That line, it's been echoing in my head ever since. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. Then he turned his glare on Paul and Linda, who suddenly didn't find the moment funny anymore. He called them out, told them they'd laughed while his marriage died, told them they were his enemies now. Watching them shrink back should have made me feel vindicated. Instead, I felt something else, fear. Because in that moment, I realized I'd never really known the man I married. When he looked back at me, there was no softness left. No trace of the man who used to kiss my forehead when I couldn't sleep. Only distance, a kind of quiet that screamed louder than any fight we'd ever had. How long has this been going on? He asked. And that was the question I'd prayed I'd never have to answer. Every instinct told me to lie, to say it was just one night, to beg him to believe it was a mistake. But I didn't. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe part of me wanted to punish him for all the years of emotional distance. 3 months, I whispered. The second the words left my mouth, I watched something in him harden, like a door slamming shut forever. Then he said it. I want a divorce. Just like that. No screaming, no bargaining, no tears. Just a quiet declaration that sliced through the noise. You'll get what you deserve, he added. Then, looking me dead in the eye, he warned, do not step foot in my house. I almost laughed. It sounded so absurd, until I saw his face. Until I saw even Donald tense beside me. Are you threatening her? Donald barked, stepping forward, puffing up his chest like a hero in some cheap movie. Yes, Aaron said flatly. If she comes near my house, I'll invoke the castle doctrine on her. That was the moment I realized he wasn't bluffing. He wasn't the tired, overworked man who'd come home too late and too quiet. He wasn't the steady husband I thought I could manipulate. No, that man was gone. In his place stood someone colder. Someone who'd had enough. And then he just walked away. No scene. No fight. No begging me to explain. He turned his back, left that club, and disappeared into the night, while I stood frozen in place, surrounded by people who suddenly didn't know what to say. The music kept pounding. The lights kept flashing. Donald's hand was still on my arm, but I couldn't hear a thing. It was like the world went silent except for one deafening truth. Aaron was gone, and this time it was for good. I didn't chase him. That's the part that eats at me even now. I stood there, hollow, pretending I could fix it later. Pretending he'd cool off, that we'd talk, that I'd twist the truth until it hurt less. But deep down I knew. Aaron wasn't bluffing. He had finally seen me for who I really was, and that was the moment I lost everything. The next morning, the house didn't even feel like mine anymore. When I stepped onto the porch, I knew something was off. The air was still heavy. I slid my key into the lock, but it jammed. I tried again, twisting harder. Nothing. My stomach dropped. The lock had been changed. Then I saw them, boxes lined up neatly by the door. My life in cardboard form. Clothes, shoes, makeup, every piece of me stacked outside like trash. And on top, my wedding dress. Torn, filthy, crushed under muddy footprints. The smell of damp fabric and perfume gone sour hit me all at once. Anger flared, but it wasn't alone. Humiliation crawled up my throat. Curtains twitched. Neighbors peered through windows, pretending not to look. I forced myself to move, scooping up what I could, shoving my life into the car as tears blurred everything. When I turned, I froze. Paul and Linda, my so-called friends, stood at the end of the driveway, whispering, smirking. Their faces said it all. I wanted to shout at them, tell them you did this too. You pushed me toward it. You laughed, you encouraged. But deep down, I knew no one had twisted my arm. I had chosen this. Aaron hadn't yelled. He hadn't begged. He hadn't even waited for an explanation. He just acted, cold, decisive, final. And somehow that silence hurt more than any screaming ever could. I felt like I'd lost a war I never even knew I was fighting. That night, I ended up at my mom's house. Victoria didn't hesitate. She opened the door, her eyes full of worry. She didn't lecture me right away. She just pulled me into her arms, and for the first time I broke. But later, sitting across from her at the kitchen table, the warmth faded. Steam curled between us from her cup of tea. "Joyce," she said, voice steady, sharp around the edges. "What you did. I can't even begin to explain how wrong it is." I rolled my eyes, defensive, tired. "Mom, it's not that simple." Her reply cut through the air. "It is that simple. You betrayed your husband. You made a fool of him. And those friends of yours," she paused, shaking her head, "they treated your marriage like a game." Her disappointment hurt more than Aaron's silence. I wanted her to say something kind. "I understand, I was young once." But instead, she looked me in the eye and said, "He loved you, Joyce. You might not see it now, but he did. And you threw it away." I pushed back my chair and stormed off to the guest room, but her words followed me like shadows. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it, Aaron's face at the club. That distant, empty stare. He hadn't yelled or cursed. He'd just walked away, quiet, detached, and somehow that hurt worse than if he'd shattered every glass in the room. Meanwhile, Donald acted like it was a minor bump in the road. "We'll be fine," he told me, his arm draped lazily around my shoulders. "Once the divorce goes through, you'll get the house, maybe half his business. Then we'll finally have the life we were meant to." His words dripped with confidence, and for a second I believed him. I pictured us in Aaron's house, redecorating it, laughing like everything was new again. Selling his business, starting over. Revenge disguised as romance. But the more I looked at Donald, the more the cracks showed. He wasn't Aaron. He never would be. Aaron was stable, grounded, controlled. Donald was impulsive, unpredictable, the same reckless charm that had once made me run from him. Still, I clung to him because admitting the truth meant facing the wreckage I'd caused. Then came the day the illusion shattered. I was at work, pretending life was normal, when a man in a dark suit walked into my office. His smile was polite, too polite. "Mrs. Joyce Peterson?" "Yes," I said carefully. He handed me a manila envelope. "You've been served." The room spun. I tore the envelope open. Divorce petition. Grounds: adultery. Attached were photographs. Me and Donald at the club. His hands on me. My lips on his. Crystal clear. No escape. I wanted to disappear. My coworkers stared as whispers spread like wildfire. Face burning, I grabbed my things and bolted outside. I called Donald, my voice shaking. He filed. He has pictures. He's trying to ruin me. Donald laughed. "Relax, babe. It's just a scare tactic. You'll still get your half." That word echoed in my head. The house, the business, the life I thought I deserved. But deep down I felt it. Aaron wasn't trying to scare me. He was finishing me. That night, Mom found me sitting in silence. She placed her tea down softly and said, "I heard about the papers." I didn't look up. She sighed. "Aaron isn't like Donald, Joyce. He's not impulsive. He doesn't play games. He plans. If you think you can outsmart him, you're wrong." Her words hit harder than anything else, because I knew she was right. Aaron hadn't raged or chased me down. He'd gone straight for precision, straight for consequence, and I was the one left stumbling in the ruins. The next week was chaos, panic, denial, desperate hope. Donald kept saying we'd win, that I'd walk away with half, maybe more. I clung to it like a drowning woman clings to driftwood. But every time I looked at those papers, the truth sank in. Aaron wasn't divorcing me, he was dismantling me piece by piece. And deep down, I knew. I was the one who gave him the match. He was just burning down the house I built on lies. For days, I carried those papers in my bag like a curse. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos, me with Donald, the whispers at work, the silence in Aaron's eyes. I told myself court would fix it, that the judge would see me differently, that I still had a chance. Donald kept repeating, "Don't worry, babe. You'll win. The house, the business, it's yours." I wanted so badly to believe him. The morning of the hearing, I got dressed carefully, a modest blouse, neat skirt, pearl earrings, trying to look composed, respectable. But deep inside I already knew. Aaron wasn't coming to fight. He was coming to end the story his way. I wanted to look like the picture of dignity, the calm, respectable wife wronged by a cold marriage. My lawyer, Harry, an older man my mother trusted, told me to breathe, to stay quiet, to let him handle it. But the moment I stepped into that courtroom and saw Aaron sitting there, poised, unshaken, his expression carved in stone, I knew this wasn't about negotiation. He wasn't there to argue. He was there to end me. The judge began with the house. Harry straightened his tie and argued that it was marital property, rightfully half mine. For a brief second, I let myself believe it. Then Aaron's lawyer stood, calm, methodical, and dropped his first grenade. "Your Honor, the property in question was purchased by my client before the marriage. It remains solely in his name." He handed over the deed. The judge barely glanced at me before nodding. "The house is not a marital asset." Strike one. I swallowed the lump in my throat and fixed my gaze forward. Fine, I thought. We'll win the business. That's where we'll strike back. Harry's voice was steady now. "Your Honor, Mr. Peterson owns and operates a thriving IT business. As his spouse, Mrs. Peterson is entitled to an equitable share of that company." I almost smiled. Yes, that was the lifeline. But Aaron's lawyer didn't blink. "Correction, Your Honor. My client is not the owner. He is merely an employee. The business belongs entirely to his father." He passed the paperwork to the judge. "On record, my client's income is a salary under $1,200 per month." The judge looked at the documents, then at me. "So, the petitioner earns more than the respondent?" My pulse pounded. Harry fumbled through his papers. "Your Honor, that can't." The judge interrupted him sharply. "Do you have evidence to the contrary?" Silence. No, Your Honor. Strike 2. I turned toward Aaron, searching his face for a sign, a flicker of guilt, a hint of the man I once knew. But he didn't move. He didn't even glance at me. His stillness was worse than cruelty. Then came the final blow. Aaron's lawyer cleared his throat. Furthermore, Your Honor, since the petitioner is the higher-earning spouse and was found in violation of the marital contract due to adultery, we request spousal support to be paid to my client. I shot up in disbelief. What? The judge slammed his gavel. Order. But I couldn't stop. He's lying. He's twisting everything. This isn't fair. The judge's gaze sliced through me. Mrs. Peterson, control yourself. Based on the evidence, the court awards Mr. Peterson spousal support in the amount of $500 per month for 2 years, or until remarriage. The words hit harder than any slap. I felt my knees buckle. Support, me paying him. Strike 3. Court adjourned. Just like that, it was over. My life dismantled in under an hour. I stormed out, fury rising like fire in my chest. When I saw Aaron in the hallway, I couldn't hold it in. You set this up. I spat. You manipulated everything. He finally turned to me, and for the first time our eyes met. But his weren't cold or angry, they were just tired. No, Joyce, he said softly. I just let the truth do the work. Then he walked away, leaving me trembling, my lawyer useless beside me, and Donald muttering curses under his breath. But the fallout didn't stop there. It spread fast. Within days, Paul and Linda, my so-called friends, were in shambles. Their businesses crumbling, clients disappearing, contracts canceled. At first, I thought it was coincidence. But whispers started to reach me. Aaron had cut them off completely. Their systems, their data, gone. Wiped clean. And deep down, I knew. It wasn't coincidence. Aaron wasn't just divorcing me. He was erasing everyone who stood by me that night at the club. One evening, I sat with Donald, scrolling through headlines. Paul's manufacturing company, bankrupt. Linda's firm, under investigation. Their lives collapsing piece by piece. Donald chuckled. Serves them right. Should have stayed out of our business. But I didn't smile. Because I knew exactly whose hand was behind it. Aaron wasn't lashing out. He was executing a plan. And he was winning. At home, things with Donald began to rot. The charm faded, replaced by tension. He started drinking more, throwing blame like knives. If you'd lied better, we wouldn't be in this mess, he snapped one night, slamming his glass down. I fired back. You think this is all my fault? You were there too. But even as I shouted, I could feel it, the cracks widening. Donald wasn't a savior. He was a parasite feeding on my wreckage. Then came the night it all broke. We argued about money, again. He accused me of failing him, of not fighting hard enough, of losing everything. And then, his hand struck my face. The sound echoed before the pain even registered. I froze, disbelief, shock, shame, all tangled in one breath. This was the man I'd thrown my marriage away for. The man I'd risked everything to chase. And now he was the one breaking what little I had left. The next morning, I went to my mother's house, my cheeks still red. She didn't question me. She just handed me a cup of tea and said quietly, "You're living the consequences of your choices now." Her words pierced deeper than his slap ever could. Because she was right. I'd left a man who loved me, who gave me security, loyalty, and peace, for someone who couldn't even keep his promises sober. And Aaron? He wasn't destroyed. He was thriving. People admired him. They spoke of his composure, his strength. He hadn't just exposed me, he'd exposed the hypocrisy of everyone who cheered me on. And my downfall? It had become the town's favorite story. When Donald finally packed his things and left after one last explosive fight, I didn't even cry. He muttered something about not wasting his life on a lost cause. And for once I didn't argue. Because he was right. That's exactly what I'd become. I sat alone in my mother's living room, staring at the divorce papers, and the truth hit me like a slow knife. Aaron hadn't destroyed me. I'd done that myself. He just made sure I couldn't build a lie on the ashes. After Donald left, the silence was deafening. I thought it would bring peace. No more shouting, no more tension. But it didn't. It was heavier than ever. Because with no one left to blame, I had to face me. I'd wrecked my own life. I remember sitting on the floor, divorce papers scattered around, an empty wine glass beside me, whispering to myself, how did I get here? Once I had a husband, a home, friends, respect. Now I had whispers, ruins, and a reputation that wouldn't wash off. Mom tried to stay patient. She never excused me, but she didn't turn her back either. You need to find work, Joyce, she said one morning, her tone firm but kind. You can't live off regret. I have a job, I muttered. For now, she replied quietly, and deep down I knew she was right. Because in that small town, everyone knew my name and what I'd done. I wasn't Joyce Peterson, the lawyer's wife, anymore. I was the woman who cheated and lost everything. They called me the woman foolish enough to get caught with her ex in public. The one whose husband didn't yell, didn't fight, but outsmarted her so completely that the whole town watched it unfold. My boss, Brandon, started cutting my hours. Clients stopped returning my calls. Even in the grocery store, I could feel the eyes, the whispers. Aaron didn't have to announce my betrayal to the world. The pictures, the divorce decree, the courtroom verdict, they told the story for him. And in a small town like ours, stories don't fade, they stain. Meanwhile, Aaron, God, Aaron, was thriving. I didn't see him in person, but everyone made sure I heard about him. They said he was more focused at work, more respected than ever. He'd even gotten himself 2 dogs, German shepherds named Titan and Luna. Loyal, majestic creatures who never left his side. The irony stung. He had begged for years to get dogs, and I'd always said no. Too messy, too much responsibility, too much noise. Now he had them. And everyone said he looked happier than he'd ever been. At night, I'd lie awake imagining him walking those dogs down the same streets we used to drive together. Neighbors smiling, kids running up to pet them, his laughter echoing in the air. I could almost hear it. And the more vividly I pictured it, the emptier I became. Because while he was out there building a new life, I was still sifting through the ashes of the old one. Then there were Paul and Linda, my so-called friends, my partners in the betrayal. Their downfall became its own form of town gossip. Paul's factory folded. Linda's firm was dragged through lawsuits until it vanished. Last I heard, they were splitting up, blaming each other for everything. I thought that would make me feel vindicated. But it didn't. Because justice had reached them, and it had reached me too. Aaron hadn't yelled, hadn't sought revenge with rage. He'd done something far colder. He made sure that everyone who played a part in his humiliation eventually faced their own downfall. He didn't need to destroy us. We destroyed ourselves under the weight of our own choices. And then there was Donald, the man I'd risked it all for. He disappeared weeks later with a single text. Not built for this drama. Good luck. Good luck. As if I was some random fling he wanted to delete from his memory. I had sacrificed my husband, my home, and my dignity for him, and in return I got silence. But deep down I wasn't surprised. That was who Donald always was. Charming, reckless, exciting, temporary. I knew it, and I chose him anyway because I wanted validation. I wanted to feel wanted again. And all I got was emptiness, broken promises, and regret. Aaron had warned me about him years before. He said, Donald's a ghost, he drifts back in but never stays. I laughed back then, thinking Aaron didn't understand. But he understood me better than I understood myself. Sometimes I replay that night at the club, the night it all came crashing down. I wonder what would have happened if I'd pulled away from Donald's kiss, if I'd left with Aaron, if I'd fallen to my knees and begged him to stay right there on the dance floor. Would he have forgiven me? Could things have been different? But then I remember the look in his eyes, calm, quiet, final. The look of a man who had reached his limit. And I realized that even if I had begged, it wouldn't have mattered. Because the real betrayal wasn't that night, it was every night for months before it. The lies, the sneaking around, the pretending to be a faithful wife while my heart had already left. That night at the club wasn't the beginning of the end. It was simply the moment the mask came off. Months after the divorce, I found myself parked outside his house. I know how pathetic that sounds, obsessive even, but I just wanted to see for myself. To see if he truly looked as happy as everyone claimed. Through the window, I saw him sitting on the couch, a warm light filling the room. Titan and Luna rested at his feet while he read a book, calm, peaceful, completely at ease. And in that stillness, I realized something that shattered me completely. He wasn't lonely. I had convinced myself that he would crumble without me, that one day he'd regret letting me go. But looking at him through that window, I saw the truth. He didn't need me, and he never would again. I drove home in silence that night, tears blurring the road ahead. Not because I missed our house. Not even because I missed the life we built. But because I finally understood what I had thrown away. A man who loved me quietly, steadily, without flash or drama. A man who gave me security, loyalty, and peace, things I had mistaken for boredom. I traded peace for chaos, love for a ghost, and in the end I got nothing. This is my life now. Every month I send Aaron a spousal support check, a monthly reminder of the man I betrayed and the life I destroyed. I live with my mother who loves me, but never lets me forget. I work reduced hours at a job where the whispers never really stop. And every time I scroll past a photo of Aaron, stronger, happier, freer, I feel another piece of myself crumble. This isn't regret. This is punishment. Because Aaron didn't ruin me. I ruined myself. Now all I have left is reflection. The kind that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., replaying the moment it all fell apart. The night I chose passion over loyalty, lies over truth, destruction over love. That was the night my soul caught fire, and the flames never went out. Some mistakes fade with time, but some stay burned into who you are. Forever. If this story hit you deep, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories, where every secret has a cost, every betrayal leaves a scar, and every confession cuts close to the truth. Tap like, share, and comment below, because sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that remind us what it means to be human.